Chosen one, listen to me carefully. What I am about to share is not for everyone. This message is not for the curious, the doubters, or those who walk casually with God. This message is only for those who truly walk the divine path, those who carry a calling, those who feel the weight of God's purpose on their soul. If you are not one of God's chosen ones, this video will not resonate with you, and it is better that you stop watching now. But if you are still here, it is not by accident. This message reached you at the exact moment your soul needed it. God aligned this word with your season, your struggle, and your growth. And yes, what you are about to hear has the power to change how you see your battles, your enemies, and even yourself. Romans 12:21 was written for you. It was never meant for the weak-minded, but for those strong enough to master their soul. You are not called to be consumed by evil, but to overcome it from a higher place, with spiritual authority. Stay with me till the end, because what I will reveal today will bring clarity, peace, and strength you didn't know you still had. Before we continue, chosen ones, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on the bell icon, share this message with other chosen ones, and comment 777 to declare that you are aligned with God's guidance and ready to walk in spiritual authority. Why Romans 12:21 was written for the chosen ones. Chosen one, I want you to slow down and really hear this. Romans 12:21 is not a decorative verse. It is not poetic filler. It is a strategic instruction from God, specifically crafted for people like you, people who carry light, people who feel deeply, people who are targeted not because they are weak, but because they are dangerous to darkness. The verse says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Now listen carefully. God was not speaking to people who never face evil. He was speaking to those who face it often. Constant resistance, silent battles, unseen warfare, betrayal that comes from unexpected places. That is the life of the chosen one. Ordinary people don't need this instruction because they are rarely attacked at the level you are. You see, chosen ones don't just exist. They disrupt. Your presence challenges systems, attitudes, and hidden intentions. And because of that, evil does not ignore you. Evil studies you. It waits for moments of weakness, exhaustion, emotional vulnerability. That is why God did not tell you to fight evil with evil. He told you how to outgrow it. This verse was not written to make you passive. It was written to make you untouchable. When God says, "Do not be overcome by evil," He is warning you about something subtle. Evil doesn't always try to destroy you directly. Sometimes it tries to turn you into itself. It tries to pull you down into bitterness, rage, revenge, and coldness. And the moment you start acting out of those places, you lose clarity. You lose peace. You lose alignment. That is how evil wins battles it could never win by force. God knew that chosen ones feel more. You love deeply. You invest genuinely. You forgive repeatedly, and because of that, wounds can cut deeper. So God gave you a higher law, not to suppress your emotions, but to govern them. Overcoming evil with good does not mean allowing abuse. It does not mean staying silent forever. It does not mean pretending nothing hurts. It means you refuse to let darkness rewrite your nature. It means you respond from your soul, not from your scars. Most people react. Chosen ones respond. There is a difference. Reaction is instinctive and emotional. Response is intentional and spiritual. Evil thrives on reaction. It feeds on impulsive words, heated decisions, and wounded pride. But when you respond with wisdom, restraint, and integrity, you starve it. That is why this verse was written for you and not for everyone else. Because you are being trained for elevation, and elevation requires emotional mastery. Let me tell you something most people will never understand. God does not promote people who cannot control themselves under pressure. He prepares them first. And pressure is the classroom. Conflict is the lesson. Opposition is the examination. Every time you choose not to become what hurt you, you pass a test. Romans 12:21 is God saying, "I know what they did. I know what they said. I know how unfair it was. But I also know what I placed inside you, and if you protect that, nothing outside of you can defeat you. Chosen one, this verse is not about being nice. It is about being powerful in a way the world does not recognize. It is about spiritual intelligence. It is about understanding that your soul is more valuable than your pride, and your peace is more important than proving a point. When you overcome evil with good, you are not losing. You are rising above the battlefield entirely. You are stepping into a dimension where God handles what you no longer need to touch. And this is why this message matters right now, because you may be standing at a moment where reacting feels justified, where defending yourself feels necessary, where returning the same energy feels tempting. But God is calling you higher, not because you are weak, but because you are chosen. Chosen one, let me add this carefully, because this part will settle something inside your spirit. When God gave this instruction, He was also protecting your future. You may not see it now, but every time you choose restraint over retaliation, you are preserving doors that anger would have slammed shut. You are protecting relationships, opportunities, and callings you have not yet stepped into. Evil does not just want to hurt you today. It wants to disqualify you tomorrow. That is why some situations feel so emotionally charged. That is why certain people seem to know exactly how to press your buttons. It is not coincidence. It is strategy. The enemy wants you tired, reactive, and spiritually off balance, because a chosen one who loses inner alignment becomes distracted from their true assignment. God's way always looks slower at first, but it moves further. While others burn bridges in moments of emotion, you are being taught how to walk across waters without sinking. This is not about suppressing your voice. It is about choosing the right moment, the right tone, and the right authority. Silence, when guided by wisdom, speaks louder than arguments ever could. I want you to understand this deeply. When you walk away with peace intact, you are not running. You are reigning. You are showing that your soul is not available for manipulation, and that alone terrifies darkness. So if you've been feeling tired of always being the bigger person, hear me clearly. God sees it, heaven records it, and nothing you surrender in obedience is ever lost. It is stored, multiplied, and returned in a form that does not cost you your soul. This is why Romans 12:21 is not just scripture, it is armor. The difference between fighting evil and overcoming it. Chosen one, this is where many people get confused, and this is where many lose battles they were never meant to fight in the first place. Fighting evil and overcoming evil are not the same thing. They may look similar on the surface, but spiritually, they are worlds apart. When you fight evil, you engage it on its level. You enter its emotional terrain. You respond with the same intensity, the same tone, the same heat. Fighting is loud. Fighting is reactive. Fighting drains you. And here is the truth most people don't want to hear. Evil is very good at fighting. It has been doing it for a long time. But overcoming evil is different. Overcoming does not mean you deny the pain. It means you refuse to let the pain decide who you become. Overcoming is quiet strength. It is composure under pressure. It is restraint when retaliation feels justified. And make no mistake, this takes far more power than lashing out ever will. Evil wants engagement. It wants reaction. It wants you emotionally invested in proving, defending, explaining, and correcting. Because the moment you do that, your peace becomes collateral damage. Your clarity becomes compromised. Your spiritual authority weakens. Let me say this plainly. Not every attack is meant to be answered. Some are meant to be outgrown. Chosen ones are often misunderstood because they don't respond the way others expect. People think silence means weakness. They think calm means indifference. They think restraint means fear. But what they don't see is the inner discipline it takes to remain steady while being provoked. When someone wrongs you, the natural impulse is to correct them immediately, to defend your name, to set the record straight, and sometimes correction is necessary. But reacting from emotion is not correction, it is exposure. It exposes your wounds. It exposes your triggers. It tells the enemy exactly where to strike next. Overcoming evil requires you to pause long enough to ask a higher question. Not, how do I win this argument? But, how do I preserve my soul? This is where chosen ones are different. You are not trained to win arguments. You are trained to protect alignment. You are trained to remain anchored when chaos tries to pull you into its current. Think about this. Evil does not need to defeat you physically if it can destabilize you emotionally. It does not need to silence you if it can exhaust you. And it does not need to overpower you if it can provoke you into self-sabotage. That is why so many battles feel personal. That is why the words cut deep. That is why the betrayal hurts more than expected. Because the attack is not just against you. It is against what you carry. When you fight evil emotionally, you carry it home with you. You replay conversations, you imagine comebacks, you lose sleep. Your body stays tense, your spirit stays unsettled. That is how evil lingers. But when you overcome evil spiritually, you leave it where it belongs, outside of you. Overcoming does not mean pretending it didn't happen. It means you refuse to let it live rent-free in your mind. It means you process the pain without poisoning your spirit. It means you acknowledge the wound without becoming bitter. Here is something I learned long ago. Evil is loud because it is insecure. It needs validation, it needs reaction, it needs to feel seen. But goodness, when rooted in strength, does not announce itself. It stands firm and lets truth expose what needs no explanation. Chosen one, some of the strongest moments in your life will be the ones no one applauds. The moments you didn't clap back. The moments you didn't explain yourself. The moments you walked away with dignity instead of winning the room. The world teaches you to match energy. God teaches you to master it. Matching energy keeps you in cycles. Mastering energy breaks them. Overcoming evil with good does not mean you tolerate disrespect forever. It means you choose when and how to respond. It means you don't let wounded people decide your character. It means you understand that timing is part of wisdom. There is a reason Jesus remained silent before certain accusations, not because he had nothing to say, but because not every audience deserves your truth. Silence can be a form of discernment. It protects sacred things from careless hands. Chosen ones often feel frustrated because they feel like they are always the ones who have to rise above, always the ones who have to be mature, always the ones who have to let things go. And that can feel unfair. But here is the reality. You are not being punished. You are being refined. Refinement feels restrictive before it feels empowering. It feels like restraint before it feels like freedom. But once you understand it, you realize something important. You are no longer controlled by external behavior. You are anchored internally. And that is power. Evil wants you emotionally predictable. It wants to know that if it pushes this button, you will explode. If it says this phrase, you will collapse. If it accuses you this way, you will rush to defend yourself. But when you overcome evil, you become unpredictable to darkness. Calm where chaos is expected. Grace where retaliation is assumed. Silence where noise is demanded. This confuses the enemy. And confusion is the beginning of defeat. Chosen one, do not underestimate the power of composure. Do not underestimate the authority of peace. When you remain grounded, you shift the atmosphere. When you refuse to engage in chaos, you expose it. People often reveal their intentions when you don't react the way they want. Their frustration grows. Their masks slip. Their motives surface. And you see clearly why God told you to rise above instead of striking back. Fighting evil keeps you locked in the moment. Overcoming evil positions you for the future. God is not preparing you to survive conflict. He is preparing you to lead beyond it. That is why some battles feel repetitive. Because the lesson is not about the other person. It is about you learning when to step back, when to stay still, and when to let God step in. When you fight, you get tired. When you overcome, you get free. And freedom is always the goal. So the next time you feel that urge to react, pause, breathe. Ask yourself one simple question: is this worth the cost of my peace? Most of the time, the answer will guide you into silence, wisdom, and strength. And that, chosen one, is how you overcome evil without ever becoming it. Chosen one, let me take this deeper, because this is where true understanding begins to settle in your spirit. There is a hidden cost to constantly fighting. It slowly reshapes your inner world. You may win the argument, but you lose softness. You may prove your point, but you harden your heart. And over time, you start becoming vigilant, guarded, and reactive, even when no threat is present. That is not strength. That is survival mode. And God did not call you to merely survive. He called you to live free. Overcoming evil protects your tenderness. It protects your ability to feel, to love, to trust God, even after disappointment. Chosen ones often think they must toughen up to endure the world, but what God actually does is teach you how to remain gentle without being fragile. That balance is sacred. When you fight evil repeatedly, your nervous system stays activated, your mind stays on alert, your body never fully rests. But when you overcome evil, your system learns safety again. Peace returns. Clarity returns. Sleep becomes deeper. Prayer becomes lighter. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. And here is something most people never realize. Evil loses interest when it cannot control your emotional state, when it can no longer provoke you into spirals of anger, shame, or self-doubt. It looks for easier targets. Calm is not passive. Calm is intimidating to chaos. Chosen one, some of your greatest victories will be internal and invisible. No applause, no recognition, just you walking away without carrying bitterness, you forgiving without reconciling, you choosing distance without hatred. These are mature spiritual decisions. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to disengage. You are allowed to say, "This no longer deserves my energy." That is not weakness. That is wisdom earned through experience. Remember this. Fighting keeps you tethered to what hurt you. Overcoming releases you from it. And when you finally release it, you make room for what God has been trying to give you all along. That is when healing becomes real. Why your soul is your strongest weapon. Chosen one, I want you to understand something that most people never discover in their entire lifetime. Your greatest strength is not your words. It is not your intellect. It is not your ability to endure pain. Your greatest strength is your soul. And that is exactly why it is the primary target. The world teaches power as dominance, control, intimidation, volume. But God teaches power as alignment, stillness, discernment, inner authority. When your soul is anchored, nothing external can shake you for long. And when your soul is disturbed, even small problems feel overwhelming. Your soul is where your values live. It is where your conscience speaks. It is where God communes with you quietly, not loudly. And because of that, evil does not attack your body first. It attacks your peace. It attacks your sense of self. It attacks your hope. Because if it can disturb your soul, it can distort your decisions. Chosen ones often underestimate this. You think strength is pushing through exhaustion, enduring disrespect, tolerating emotional chaos. But that is not strength. That is erosion. Strength is knowing when to pause, when to pull back, when to protect what is sacred inside you. Your soul is not fragile, but it is sensitive. And sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is perception. It allows you to sense shifts, intentions, and atmospheres before words are spoken. That is why chosen ones often feel things before they understand them. That is why you sense tension, dishonesty, or danger, even when everything looks calm on the surface. That awareness is a gift, but only if you learn how to protect it. When you let anger dominate your soul, discernment fades. When bitterness takes root, clarity blurs. When resentment settles in, compassion dries up. And that is the slow victory of evil, not destruction, but corrosion. God did not tell you to overcome evil with good because good behavior looks nice. He told you because goodness preserves your soul's structure. It keeps you aligned with who you were created to be. It prevents you from becoming someone you don't recognize. Your soul carries your assignment, and anything that disrupts it delays your purpose. Chosen one, listen closely. Every time you choose peace over proving a point, your soul grows stronger. Every time you choose silence over reaction, your soul becomes more refined. Every time you forgive without reopening wounds, your soul becomes lighter. That lightness is not emotional denial. It is emotional maturity. There is a reason people feel drained after certain interactions. It is not because the conversation was long. It is because the soul was pulled into conflict, into defense, into justification, into emotional labor it was never meant to perform. Your soul was not designed to wrestle with chaos daily. It was designed to commune with God. And here is where chosen ones struggle. You often feel responsible for fixing things, explaining yourself, making others understand, restoring harmony at your own expense. But not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Not every conflict needs resolution. Some need distance. Some need time. Some need to be released entirely. Protecting your soul sometimes means disappointing people. Sometimes it means being misunderstood. Sometimes it means choosing solitude over engagement. And that is okay. Jesus often withdrew, not because he was overwhelmed, but because he understood rhythm. He understood that constant output without restoration weakens even the strongest spirit. Your soul needs space to breathe. When you nourish your soul, your reactions change, your patience deepens, your responses soften, your confidence stabilizes. You no longer feel the need to rush into battles or defend every accusation. That is when authority becomes natural, not forced. Evil cannot overpower a soul that is grounded. It can only distract it. And distraction is subtle. It comes in the form of overthinking, replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, carrying resentment quietly. But once you become aware of this, you gain choice. You can say, I will not carry this today. You can say, this does not deserve my inner space. You can say, I trust God with what I cannot control. That is not avoidance. That is wisdom. Chosen one, your soul responds to how you treat it. When you neglect it, it becomes tired. When you overload it, it becomes anxious. When you protect it, it becomes resilient. Prayer strengthens the soul. Stillness calms it. Gratitude softens it. Truth anchors it. And the more anchored your soul becomes, the less reactive you are. The less reactive you are, the less influence evil has over you. This is why some people seem unbothered even in chaos. It is not because they don't care. It is because they have learned where their power resides. Your soul is not meant to absorb every blow. It is meant to guide your response. And when you live this way, something shifts. Situations that once triggered you lose their grip. People who once drained you lose access. Conflicts that once consumed you become background noise. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That is spiritual growth. Chosen one, guarding your soul is not selfish. It is stewardship. God entrusted you with it for a reason. And when you honor that trust, you move differently. You speak differently. You respond differently. And that difference is felt. Your soul is not just your strength. It is your shield. How evil tries to pull you down to its level. Chosen one, now we speak about awareness. Because once you understand how evil operates, you stop taking things so personally. You stop internalizing attacks that were never about you to begin with. And most importantly, you stop falling into traps that were designed to drain your spirit. Evil rarely comes announcing itself. It comes disguised as provocation, as misunderstanding, as disrespect, as betrayal that feels deeply personal. It studies your values, your compassion, your patience, and then it uses those very traits to try to destabilize you. One of the most common tactics is emotional baiting. Someone says something just sharp enough to sting, just inaccurate enough to trigger correction, just unfair enough to make you want to defend yourself. And the moment you take the bait, the focus shifts. No longer on truth, but on reaction. No longer on integrity, but on emotion. Evil wants to drag you into the mud because it knows you shine on higher ground. Chosen ones often ask, why does this keep happening to me? Why am I always misunderstood? Why do people project their issues onto me? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. Your presence exposes what others are trying to hide from themselves, and exposure creates discomfort. When people are uncomfortable, they often lash out. They accuse, they criticize, they distort. Not because you are wrong, but because your alignment reminds them of their own disconnection. Evil uses projection very effectively. People place their unresolved wounds, insecurities, and fears onto you. And if you are not careful, you start carrying weight that was never yours to hold. Another tactic is urgency. Evil wants immediate response. It wants you to speak before you think, decide before you discern, act before you pray. Because speed bypasses wisdom. Slowness invites clarity. That is why chosen ones must learn to pause. There is power in delay. There is protection in silence. There is wisdom in waiting until emotions settle before responding. Not everything needs an immediate answer. Some things reveal their truth with time. Evil also tries to isolate you emotionally. It whispers lies like, no one understands you. You're always alone in this. You have to handle everything yourself. And if you believe that, you withdraw in a way that disconnects you from support, prayer, and perspective. Isolation weakens discernment. Chosen one, you were never meant to walk alone. Even Jesus had moments where he brought others close. Not everyone, but a trusted few. Discernment is not about shutting everyone out. It is about knowing who has access to your inner world. Another trap is repetition. The same conflict, the same type of person, the same emotional pattern. Evil repeats what works until you become aware of it. And once you see the pattern, you gain the power to break it. Patterns reveal lessons. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me about boundaries, patience, or self-respect? Often, the lesson is not about changing others, but about strengthening yourself. Evil also uses guilt. It convinces you that choosing peace is selfish, that setting boundaries is unloving, that walking away is abandonment. But that is a lie. You cannot pour from an empty soul. You cannot heal others by harming yourself. Love without boundaries becomes self-neglect. Chosen ones are compassionate, but compassion without wisdom leads to exhaustion. God never asked you to sacrifice your soul to prove your faith. He asked you to guard it. Another subtle tactic is comparison. Evil points to others who retaliate and seem to get away with it, others who speak harshly and are applauded, others who act without restraint and appear successful, and it whispers, "See, your way doesn't work." But what you don't see is the cost they pay privately. The unrest, the instability, the inner chaos, the spiritual emptiness. Your path is different because your calling is different. Evil also uses familiarity. Attacks often come from people you trust, people you opened up to, people you expected support from. That hurts deeply. But understand this: familiarity gives access, not authority. Someone knowing your story does not give them permission to rewrite it. Betrayal is painful, but it is also revealing. It shows you who can walk with you into your next season and who cannot. And here is one of the most important things to understand. Evil wants you to become emotionally predictable. It wants to know exactly how to provoke you, exactly how to upset you, exactly how to pull you out of alignment. But once you become aware of your triggers, you gain choice. You can respond differently. You can step back. You can protect your energy. Unpredictability confuses darkness. Chosen one, not every situation requires your engagement. Some require your absence. Some require prayer instead of conversation. Some require distance instead of explanation. You do not owe everyone access to your emotional world, and this is where maturity shows, not in how loudly you speak, but in how wisely you choose when to speak. Evil grows frustrated when it cannot provoke you. when it cannot rush you, when it cannot guilt you, when it cannot isolate you, and that frustration often causes it to reveal itself more clearly. Silence often exposes what arguments never could.